panels tonight.
Yep. We're doing it big.
Well, look, it's important. What we're uncovering here is pretty scary.
It is.
And you've been on top of this for the last couple days. And we have here 182 pages of prosecuted voter fraud from across the country. People say voter fraud doesn't exist. We have a whole whiteboard that we're going to be going through tonight. Trump did better with black voters all across the country.
Right. He did a tremendous job, and it was expected for us. We see people, boots on the ground, seeing people wake up and realize that the Democratic Party has done nothing for anybody, ever.
But how is it he did worse with black voters in 3 cities that mattered, but he did better with black voters everywhere else?
That's called fraud, my friend. That's called fraud. Because it's consistent across the board that Donald Trump outperformed his 2016 election. Mm-hmm. We already knew that he was going to do that. If he were to outperform 2016 like I knew he would be able to do, it should be a clear victory in 2020. And now we see that only in certain states they're having trouble counting.
So we here have a very complete whiteboard. And you and I were going through this before.
Yeah. This is mind-blowing.
And so I have a new term I want to introduce into the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
It's called ballot laundering.
Right.
I think this was the Ozark election. For those of you that have seen the show Ozark, it's all about very smart people that launder money. Mm-hmm. And the process of laundering money is you have a bunch of drug money from the cartel or whatever in cash, and you want to reintroduce it back into the system. You do that by cleaning money. I think that same sort of idea is very similar to what they did in some of these states. Let me show you why. The second number here is one of the most important numbers of all of these conversations. In Pennsylvania, there was a 1,776% increase in voter registration for 90-plus-year-olds in Pennsylvania. So let's go back to the main camera. Brandon, why would it in the midst of a pandemic, would there be a 1,776%?
Well, yeah, you said it right. In a pandemic where they're talking about 200,000 people have died from COVID-19.
The 90-plus-year-olds are like, now I want to go out of my way to register to vote.
Go out of my way. I'm going to vote. I'm going to be more active in this point in history than ever before out of any other group that exists. And you can't tell me that they have somehow become more active in this election when they are the most at risk for COVID deaths and also COVID illnesses.
This is ballot laundering.
Yeah.
And let's build this out even further. In Nevada, there is now evidence that the Trump campaign has submitted that 9,000 ballots in the state of Nevada, 9,000 were people that were out of state that no longer live there.
Yep.
There were 4,250 missing ballots in Republican areas in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. But here's the really interesting thing, and Brandon, I want your take on this. The bellwether counties. It feels like there was a red wave everywhere.
Everywhere.
Except just a couple areas.
Right. If you look at any of I was on the Wall Street Journal little interactive map, and you look at it and you talk about all the toss-up states that they had claimed. All of the toss-up states went to the Republicans. Republicans, they call it the states or the votes that are leaning more Republican, all went Republican. No flip, no nothing. Republicans outperformed 2016. Mm-hmm. They outperformed the Democrats. Everywhere in the United States of America, they outperformed the Democrats. Only in the cities that they have to stop voting, and all of a sudden they come up with all these ballots in the middle of the night while everybody's asleep. I mean, it's highly suspicious. I mean, there is evidence to be that we need to look into, and to see places, news outlets get on air and say there's no evidence or voter fraud. There's no real evidence of it. You just showed on this board, one individual you showed on this board, they have a team of investigative reporters supposedly that can't look up not one statistic to prove that there's at least questionable areas in voters over 90 plus. You got the ballots in Nevada. You have missing in PA and North Carolina, which we see a huge conflict in, the bellwether counties. All of this has been reported and looked up by people like you and I who are the real journalists.
We're doing the real journalists.
We're the real journalists, man. And they can't look this stuff up and give the American people a voice.
They're all in on it. They want Trump gone immediately. And so the bellwether counties is really interesting. So there's 2 counties in particular. We'll get the names sent to us right now. In Indiana and New Mexico that have correctly predicted the winner of the presidential election. So there's like 15 counties across the country that are bellwether counties. They're swing counties. When they go one way, they'll predict the winner. Trump won all of them except one. And it's called Valencia County, New Mexico. They have not been wrong predicting a winner of the presidential race since 1956. So if you would have told me that Trump won the bellwether counties, Trump did better with black voters,
Right.
Trump did better with Hispanic voters, Trump did better with suburban married women. He actually won married women. Did you know that?
Right.
How do you win married women, do better with Hispanics, better with blacks, high turnout, our base is fired up. We win nearly 10 House seats, maybe more. The Democrats do awful in their Senate races. Here's the reason, is because this was allegedly, or else we're going to get our stream shut down.
Right.
Allegedly, right?
Allegedly.
This was allegedly ballot laundering. Brandon, do you believe that Philadelphia had 95% voter turnout and that Biden had more enthusiasm for him than Barack Obama? You lived through the Obama deal in the black community. What was that like?
Think about this. Everybody loved Obama because Obama was the first time in United States history that everybody can put aside all the racial division and tension and saying that this is a racist country. We had the first black president. He was eloquent. He was articulate. He had a movement. And the thing is, the person he was running against did not have a movement. That's the key here. Barack Obama had a movement. Every time he come to speak, it was poetic. Joe Biden can't remember where he's at half of the time. People allegedly believes that he is struggling from some type of mental disability because of his age.
Yep.
He is not a part of a movement. Nobody's enthusiastic about Joe Biden. Nobody's enthusiastic about Kamala Harris. Donald Trump had a movement like no other. And when you put that together and you say, there's no way in the world that when we lived through Barack Obama and we saw the enthusiasm, we saw hope and change, legit, man, I voted for him. There's a whole bunch of people that voted for him because it was like, this is our opportunity.
What was
as a
that like
country.
in the black community? It was like, you're voting for him, there's no discussion, right?
You don't even care what that man's saying. He could say he's going to put every black man in jail in history, and you didn't care. But because he's
Biden
black.
did say that.
Biden actually said it. But because he was black, you're voting for him. This is the retaliation of all of the hurt and pain and all of the segregation and everything you can think of as a black person that's been brainwashed into your mind. Barack Obama solved all the problems. Every black person I know voted for Barack Obama, no question asked. People turned out, people registered to vote. I registered to vote for the first time when I voted for Barack Obama. And you cannot tell me that sleepy Joe Biden is coming out with that much energy and he can't even talk straight for 30 seconds at a time.
And we're supposed to believe, and also, here's another important thing. I don't know if we can zoom in on this, but there's no Biden ground game. There were no staffers.
No.
They had no full-time staffers on the ground.
Nobody.
No one. And so 95% turnout in Philadelphia, if you add all the parts together, there are 14,000 dead people on the rolls in Michigan, and at least 10,000 of them have been voted. So they say it's just irregularities. That's what they say. These are irregularities that we sorted out. Republicans won 28 of 29 competitive House seats. We flipped 3 state legislators, everybody, and we did not lose a single House seat.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. Listen, when you look at voting, right? Most people vote. I can be open about how I vote. I voted for Donald Trump, hands down, and I voted all the way down ballot. I voted down ballot. I didn't take my ballot and just go Trump and throw it in there. I said we want to win the presidency. We want to win the House and the Senate. We want to have it straight down ballot. You cannot tell me that Joe Biden had a tremendous amount of ballots that went just Joe Biden, down ballot.
And that's the other number I want to get into here. So 500,000 ballots voted just for Joe Biden in the key battleground states. 500,000. Now, just for Hillary Clinton back in 2016, or people that just voted Democrat, 120,000. 62.8 thousand in Wisconsin, 98,000 in Pennsylvania, 85,000 in Georgia, 42,000 in Arizona, 69 to 115,000 in Michigan that just go Joe Biden and they submit it.
That's not, like, anybody with a brainstem can tell that that's not the way things work. That is highly suspicious. In the states that have the most controversy, the swing states, they have people that are just voting for Biden and not voting down ballot.
That's right.
You can't tell me that any informed voter that looks at their voting card or whatever you want to call it, the ballot, and they look at it and they say, I see Joe Biden, I see Mark Kelly, and I'm only going to vote for Joe Biden, and I don't care about Mark Kelly. I'm not going to vote for any of these props. I'm just going to vote Joe Biden and I'm going to run away. That's not happening, ladies and gentlemen. If you see it happen with Biden, you should also see a similar trend with Donald Trump. You should see people saying, look, I just want to vote for Trump because I'm sick of these leftists. I don't want nothing to do with socialism. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump and I'm going to turn it in. That did not happen.
Right.
So we have a chart here that we're going to put up in a second where all of this is how you find out that there's something irregular. So let's go through this. Let's continue to go through this. So, Brandon, what if I told you that in Washington, D.C., heavy black population,
Right.
Donald Trump did a point better than he did in 2016. In Chicago, Trump did 5 points better.
That sounds crazy.
5 points. In San Francisco, 5 points better.
Yeah.
So he did better with white liberals
Yeah.
and with inner city blacks in
Right.
Chicago. He did 15 points better in Miami, Florida. He did the same in LA and Boston. But explain this to me. He did 5 points worse in Atlanta, 5 points worse in Dane County, Madison, Wisconsin, and 5 points worse in Detroit.
Yeah, that's weird to me because there's no difference between, in my personal opinion, there's no huge difference between the culture of African Americans in those cities. There's not much difference. And when you win in Chicago or you do better in D.C., common sense tells you should be doing better around the country because there's a trend of Donald Trump being a candidate for the minorities. And you look at the Hispanic population, you look at the black population, and we said this before, if Trump gets over 8%, he gets to 10%, 18%, whatever, you want to go up to 20%, then Democrats have no chance in the world. Why was Joe Biden not putting in the effort and energy and going into the basement when they started talking about his son? Because they knew they were going to do this stuff. There was no reason for them to go out their way and protest. They just need, not protest, but they need to campaign. They just need to show a face and say, look, we're doing this, we're doing that. Let's do a photo op and let's get out of there, because they knew they were going to do this. They knew they were going to do it when Nancy Pelosi came out and said, well, whether he believe it or not, Donald Trump is not going to be the president. Whether he believe it or not, because they knew that they were going to cheat.
Yes. I was there on election night in 2016. Everyone was stunned. Everyone.
Yeah.
And what was most interesting is that they didn't stop counting ballots in Detroit or in Milwaukee or Atlanta or Philadelphia. They stayed up all night, and at that night they said, Trump won Philadelphia.
Right.
And the Hillary Clinton campaign was like, what do you mean he won? Can't you find more ballots? They said, we got no more ballots left. That graph right there goes to show the 1,776% increase just amongst people that are 90 plus years old. It's statistically unthinkable.
Yeah, and like, what is it about? Just think that if that was true, just say that it was true. What is it about President Trump that would make older people dislike him at that rate? What could he have possibly done?
And here's the amazing thing. He won older voters in Florida.
Right.
So in the Sumter County, Florida, near the Villages, Trump did amazingly well. He did better than he did in 2016. So he did better with older voters all across the country. Except
in these compromised
targeted areas. You look at these numbers, everybody. No one else was talking about this, by the way.
Right.
You notice on TV how everyone has just stopped talking about this? Like, oh, coronation, we're going to put the crown on Joe Biden, and they've just stopped talking about it. No Biden ground game. Republicans won 28 of 29 competitive House seats and flipped 3 state legislators. There were 500,000 ballots across the country that just voted for Joe Biden. How about the 100% ballot drop in Michigan that was just for Biden overnight?
Overnight, 100%. You cannot tell me that 100% goes one way. And this is the funny thing. Trump won Michigan in 2016. He's performed better all across the country. Any reasonable person will believe that he will win Michigan again. How on God's green earth is the trajectory having President Trump up by 300,000 plus votes, and then they quit counting the ballots, which has never happened in history, from my understanding.
Never.
They
and
quit
only in 4 cities.
Right. Only in these.
Time out,
only
time
in
out,
these cities.
time out.
He quit counting the votes. All of a sudden, they come up with 100% votes that turn out for one candidate. One candidate.
We just got an email right here. It confirms my theory. Jesus says, I work at Beatitudes Assisted Living in Phoenix. Social workers came in and went into each room in the dementia unit and helped them fill out their ballots, then took the ballots with them. When questioned by all of our staff, they said they had the right to vote. We said, how does a dementia patient even request a ballot? And they went out and left.
We're not even talking about the people who were dead that voted.
That's right. Well, that's 10,000 already in Michigan. But the Michigan Secretary of State says, no, that's an irregularity, and you guys aren't viewing it correctly.
How many? 10,000?
Well, so there's 14,000 that we know of in dead people that are on the rolls. An independent rocket scientist on Twitter, he's unbelievable, will find the right one, the name, so I can get the right attribution. They said they found 10,000 people that are over 105 years old that voted that are all dead. People say that voter fraud doesn't exist in the country. Voter fraud doesn't exist. I have 182 pages of prosecuted voter fraud.
Right.
How about this one, Brandon? Richard Howard was involved in a scheme that offered cigarettes and money to homeless people on Skid Row in exchange for fake signatures on ballot initiatives and voter registration forms. This resulted in hundreds of fraudulent signatures. He pleaded no contest to one felony account of subscribing a fictitious name. He was sentenced to a suspended sentence of 3 years and 3 years of probation. How about this one? Bradley Japperson of Pacifica forged signatures for a referendum initiative and was paid $5 for each signature. He was reported to have forged over 100 signatures, most of which were actual country residents. Peterson was charged with 10 counts of perjury by declaration. He was sentenced to 2 years in county jail. I've page after page after page of verified voter fraud from across the country.